It was recently new amp day for me, a Black Friday sale at Anderton's, plus part exchanging my old 65 reissue Deluxe Reverb and 68 Princeton meant that I had to take this Tone King Imperial Mark II home with me. The Tone King Imperial Mark II has been around since the early 90s and it is regarded as one of the best clean sounding amps out there. It's a 2-channel amp, 20 watts, with a lead channel which is trying to be like a Fender Tweed sort of 50s style amp, so you get a bit of breakup in that channel if you want it, and then a rhythm channel which is based on a Deluxe Reverb clean tone. And what you're about to hear is the sound of the amp mic'd up with a Sennheiser 609 straight into Logic over my backing track inspired by Kenny Burrell's Midnight Blue, which you can get on the lowest tier of my Patreon page. Now I will talk through the positives and negatives, but just to run through the kind of specs and controls you've got on this amp. You've got 2 channels, a lead channel which is based on 50s tweed kind of sound, and then you've got a rhythm channel which is clean kind of Deluxe Reverb sounds. On each channel you then have 2 ways to control the tone. On the lead channel you have tone and mid bite, and then on the rhythm channel you have treble and bass, so there's no mid control on the rhythm channel. There's also then spring, tube driven reverb and tremolo as well. Now to many, one of the most appealing features about this amp is the built-in attenuator, the Iron Man 2, and you can go down in decibels of 3, I think it's then 9, 15 and 36. So what that enables you to do is have distorted tones at lower volumes at home. And one of the coolest things is you can have that so that bypasses the rhythm channel, so the attenuation only applies to the lead channel, meaning you could have a slightly broken up tone on the lead channel and a completely clean channel for the rhythm. My hopes for getting this amp was to have 2 amps in one, and it has certainly delivered that. You know, getting rid of my Deluxe and Princeton for this, the idea was that it would do the job of both and do it better as well, and I feel like that's definitely the case so far. So I'll just demonstrate the attenuation and what it does to the lead channel. So this is with no attenuation, the volume is on 2. And if I go, this would be -3 decibels. There's a little bit of grit coming through. As you do the attenuation, you obviously have to turn up the volume a little bit. You can hear a bit there. And again. Could keep going, but I would need to keep increasing the volume a bit. I mean, I wouldn't, as it gets more and more distorted, you know, maybe if I wanted to break out, maybe I might occasionally want to do that, but not too often, I'll be honest. So the attenuator, I think on this lead channel, if you've got it a couple stops, it brings in, back on the neck pickup, it brings in a nice bit, little bit of sustain, which I would be using definitely. If I switch to the rhythm, the attenuator is bypassed because it's a switch on the back that you can change. And you get a beautiful creamy sound. Some people say this amp is quite bright. I mean, I got the tone rolled off a tiny bit. The minute the bass is on 6 and the treble's on 5. I don't really have a preference for like a really dark muffly like this. Jazz tone, I don't want it to be too dark. For me, this does exactly what I need in terms of clean tone, it's there. So then I can go between the two, having a slight bit of breakup on my lead and on the rhythm. It's pretty clean. One positive I definitely think is when comping, what I've noticed with the gigs I've done with it so far, is just that it's there's a very kind of compact bass response, if you like, so the chords are very clear and easy to hear and cut through well on the stage. And there's a nice sense of clarity, you know, you play interesting voicings, you can really hear each note well, which I'm really pleased with. I think the other thing is just obviously the look of it. It looks vintage and cool, and it suits being on the stage, you know, when you're playing music from the 30s and 40s and so forth. It fits the bill quite well. On to the negatives. I don't really have any negatives in terms of the tone or the sound. I think it's just making sure you set it up well as a jazz guitar player. For instance, on the lead channel, if you have, say, the tone set to all the way down to nothing, there it is. But if I set it, let's say, halfway, it's going to get quite bright. All the way up, you'll see what I mean. And if you introduce the mid-bite control as well, if I put that up, you can hear really those controls are more for the preserve of not jazz, of blues and kind of rock players. So, you know, I'm kind of tending to have it just on a little bit on both the tone and the mid-bite. So I'd say, obviously it can be incredibly bright, but you're able to control it, so that's fine, so that's not a complaint. My biggest complaint about this amp is for the price. It doesn't come with a dust cover or a case or anything, so I've since had to purchase a Studio Slips, and again, this is not sponsored or anything. I've bought one of their amp covers before and just thought they're brilliant. They're well padded, offers the amp protection in and out of venues when you're transporting them, and so I bought a cover from them to do it, and they've done an excellent job, and I can feel confident taking it to gigs now, as before I was having to lug it around in its cardboard box, which was not much fun. The only other negative I think on this, this isn't a problem for me, but I think it would be for a lot of people, it is hard to get practice volume at home, bedroom volume levels if you like. I think it's obviously a 20 watt tube amp, so whilst the attenuator's in there and you can dial it down, I don't think this is an amp for people practicing at home. I think this is an amp for people going out and playing, if I'm honest. If I was going to buy a tube amp for home, I would not buy a 20 watt tube amp. You'd want something with maybe a maximum of 10 watts or so, or maybe less, like 5 or something. You don't need anything with that much power at home. So that's one thing I'd say. So overall, incredibly happy. I envisage this being my main gigging amp. I also use a Quilter Tone Block 202 for gigging, which is just very portable. It's smaller than that, it's lightweight, and it's got tons of headroom. So depending on the gig and the load in from it, sometimes I'll probably take my Quilter, but plenty of times I think I'll be taking this. And if you've not seen my demo of the Tone Block 202, which is an amp I thoroughly recommend, I'll put that on the screen for you to watch. And obviously this is still in the honeymoon period with this amp, so I might do a follow-up video to it in future. But I think if it's an amp you're looking for with versatility, vintage kind of tones, I think it really, really does tick those boxes. But it's expensive, and I think, you know, particularly buying these kind of amps, these American tube amps in America in the last couple of years, they've just gone crazy in terms of price. So, you know, I was only able to buy it because I could part exchange stuff against it. I don't think I would want to stump up the full amount, if I'm honest, but there you go. That's my thoughts. If you've got any comments on the tones or any questions about the amp that I might not have covered, then leave them below. But don't forget, jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday. Until next time, you take care.